Good morning and welcome. It is August 30th, 2020 on a lovely and much cooler Sunday morning in the Pacific time zone. Welcome to today's episode. I have to say that I didn't sleep well last night. Deep when I was asleep. However, as I've talked about before, it's very valuable to notice what the mind starts thinking about immediately upon awakening, because the ego is out to get me, as I talk about quite a bit on this channel. And one of the things that it likes to do is to immediately remind me of everything that is absolutely awful in my world and the world in general. So unless I control my mind almost immediately upon awakening, then I will immediately be reminded of everything that's wrong. It will not remind me about everything that's right. It will remind me of everything that's wrong. And so I have to counteract that pretty fast. And I also believe it is incredibly valuable to notice exactly what my mind is, or your mind is saying upon awakening. So, par example, today's topic upon awakening, each time I woke up and went to the restroom, was the country is falling into fascism. And actually, by the time I got up this morning, I realized that as of this week, which is one of the reasons that I make the notes about the actual day this is being recorded, I realized that we really did fall into fascism this week as the result of the convention of the party formerly known as Republican. And so, that's a tough call. That's one of those really, really, really deep issues. And how am I going to counteract that? Well, in a certain context, I'm not. In a certain context, I'm not. I am actually going to own it. And I feel better in the owning it than in some sort of airy-fairy denial or dismissiveness of being of of being in denial that the United States has fallen into fascism. And I'm actually in a really good mood as the result of that. Now, I really wasn't in a good mood when I first woke up. And the first thing that I did, actually, each time I woke up throughout the night, was I did the Ho'oponopono prayer, which, of course, is, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And that is the mantra, the prayer that I use to counteract that ego that wakes up in the morning and wants to screw with me, to absolutely screw with me. So what am I going to do about that? It's what I did this morning, and this is what I recommend, is, I immediately got up and I tried to get a 7-hour sleep, but that wasn't going to happen. So I finally just got up, fixed my coffee, and sat down, and I did my writing about America in fascism. And I wrote about, how long do I want to play under those circumstances? And I wrote about what was my priorities in my own personal life. And those priorities became very clear to me. And I also want to say one other thing about this America falling into fascism thing. There's a YouTube channel that I came across yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever. I can't remember what it's called. I hope I can remember to put that underneath. But it was essentially about the fall of civilizations. So you could, search that in YouTube and see if you can find it. And I just flashed over a few things. I flashed over, how the Spanish / Catholics killed upwards of 70 million people in South America back during the Discovery days, and how Americans, destroyed the Native American population here, and how the European countries went to, and the United States went to Africa and, grabbed people and threw them in boats and sent them off to be slaves. And the reason that I'm bringing any of that up is because the one thing that I've been very clear about is, and I really wish somebody had said this to me sooner in life, but I think it had a lot to do with how I was raised in the post-war world where things were supposedly fabulous and they weren't. But is to realize that one does not come to the planet and leave without being unscathed. And some are more scathed than others. And even myself, I definitely fear for my life at this particular point as we move into fascism. And so, but I'm not the first person to deal with this, and you're not the first person to deal with this. And once again, the question then becomes is, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to have any amount of peace during this at all? I in some ways am not sure. I was talking with a very good friend of mine last night on the phone, and we hadn't talked in a number of weeks, and I said, "Oh, I have to tell you," and I've mentioned this on this show. "Oh, I have to tell you, that I gave up all faith and all hope a few weeks ago, and it was absolutely marvelous. It was such a wonderful experience. I gave up all faith, all hope in regards to everything a few weeks ago. It was wonderful. Oh my God, was it wonderful?" Because, and I'm sure people are going, what the frig is this guy talking about? How can you live with no hope? And I went into a conversation about, when I did EST, 35 years ago, 36 years ago. And there were two real main points, takeaways from Est that I really kind of accepted. It was the big reveal at the end of the 4-day thing, and one of them was this is it. This is it. Right here, right now, this is it. I talk about this a lot on my channel, which is one of the other reasons I put the date in, because it brings to fore the present moment. But the other big takeaway from Est, at least that I remember, is that there is no hope. But there is the possibility of joy. And that's my responsibility. That's my responsibility. Nobody else's responsibility. That's my responsibility. So I can go very dark. And as you know, if you're watching this, I can go very dark. It was interesting. I was with somebody the other day who admitted that he has a real challenge with not going dark. And I do too. I have to admit that I can go very, very dark. And I do at some point almost every single day. So what keeps me going? Well, there's a few things. One is, at the end of the day, most human beings really do have a desire to live, even if their circumstances are pretty shitty. And you can see that. You can see that in so many people out there that have it much worse than I do. And they're still just rolling along. I remember I was at a stoplight yesterday, and this guy walked across the street, and he couldn't go fast enough for the light to change. So the left turn lane started, and he was still walking across the street, and the left turn lane people waited for him to get past the left turn lane so that they could turn left. And then he finally made it, and he made it just about at the end of the left turn lane being on. And I looked at that man walking across the street with a cane, very skinny, very small, and he still had some sort of life force still in him, that he wanted to still be there and experience whatever that is for him. I'm not sure that I'm up for that, but that's what he's up to. And that's what I say about, that we have this inherent life force that is so strong that even under dire circumstances. So there's that keeps me going during the dark. And then there's, my prayer practice, I have to say. I'm not spouting it in terms of this is the be all and end all, but it does work for me. And if it works for you, cool. And I would love to somehow be of service in regards to that, if that's what you would like. I've been visualizing recently in the last while that I should really put some sort of coaching program together. And I don't like to use the word coaching, and I'm not sure that I like to use the word mentoring. I just want to listen to people and, give some direction based on permission to give direction. And to pray. that's really what I would love to do with people, is to just pray and have people listen, or and me listen to other people. That's what I meant. Have people talk. You know, I have this channel, and it's made all the difference in the world in my attitude. I'm not a big writer. I am writing now because I'm doing the prayer practice over it, but I've never been a big writer until we went into shutdown mode. Um, and I just like the idea of prayer. And I like the idea of just sitting and listening to people. I know I'm not the only one who has this much fear, and I'm not the only one who's come to the conclusion that the country has moved into fascism. And I'm not the only one who doesn't think that Trump will get reelected again. I absolutely am convinced that he will get reelected again, no matter what. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and unfortunately, I don't think that people are desperate enough. But I digress. And I just want to say that in the midst of all of that, there are some people out there that really need just to be heard. Just to be heard. So if you'd like to be heard, if you'd like somebody to listen, send me a private message, and we can figure out a pricing and go from there. Thank you so much for listening this morning. Bonne journée.